Hello, it's Prince Easy, and well, in this particular video, I want to talk about the issue of history and why it is so important, especially now, right? Highly relevant, because as they say, right, the winner gets to write the history. And people be only thinking about the effects of which that story has on the losers, so to speak. And they forget, right, this is just a deception, right? It's a deception and there's nothing less, right? So it is kind of a double-edged sword, right? For those writers of this history, they will forget their mistakes, and of course the losers will forget their greatness, so to speak, because that will never ever be acknowledged, right? So even though most history by now is, I can confidently say, public knowledge, right? Meaning that there are many avenues that could be taken so as one can inform themselves, right? But because at this point it is more like different opinions or views as for the sequence of events, right? Because that's what history is, a sequence of events that led or culminated to a certain bigger event, so to speak, right? So we have seen the Europeans write this history, right? And it did not just affect Africans, no, it affected them also, right? Them also, because, like I said, it is an exaggeration of their strength and ability, so to speak, right? I could give you an example, right? Like right now, if you go to the universities, right, go to the universities and look for the statistics of the graduating individuals, right, in, most importantly, the STEM, right? The statistics will tell you everything, right? That Africans, Chinese, Russians, they are leading in numbers, they are learned, right? So all of this talk of them wanting to move their industry within their countries whilst hammering on importing working forces, so to speak, right? It is futile, because in reality their sons and daughters are not learned enough to be of use in this highly dynamic, right, forever changing industry, so to speak, right? So there's that aspect of things, but here let's focus on the history. Like I saw one video that a certain white brother did a good job, right? If you have been around the internet, I know you might have seen him. He's bald with a beard. He dissected basically the mobile phone, what we call the mobile phone, right? A modern mobile phone, component by component, right? The best he could, at least. And basically pointed out the contribution of the African people, right? When it comes to semiconductors, we are right there. When it comes to displays, we are right there. Circuit boards, we are right there. Not just there, but part of the pioneering, right? Part of the pioneering, but that has been kept hidden, right, as part of the enslavement, so to speak, right? Because if you are in doubt of your own capabilities, they have basically castrated you psychologically, right? So I think in order to detach which was castrated, I think we should talk about history, right? Because there are some Europeans that come out here and have bold statements, right? I've heard one European say how the Europeans are behaving today is because of the people that they have imported, right? So the leader of the Western Europeans, right, the small hats, right? Let's dissect the Europeans in general first. Is Europe a continent? It's not a continent. By definition, it's not a continent, right? But this just shows their theft, but it goes deeper, right? So let's talk about the small hats and their language, right? Because their language says a lot about where they're from, right? So from what I've gathered, their language basically has three roots, right? The first root being the real Hebrew, right? Spoken by the Africans back then, right? The real Hebrew. And then we have German, right? The German language. And of course we have the Slavic languages. These are the three components of their language, right? And most people just go on with the fact and agree with the fact that they're actually speaking the biblical Hebrew. No, they are not. They're speaking, what do they call it, Yiddish or whatever. Right? This is the characteristics of the Westerners, right? These are the characteristics of the Westerners, right? In one of my videos here, I had a thumbnail showing, what was it, the German or the British, right, with their Browning machine guns, the automatic ones, showing them to the Bushmen of Africa, so to speak, right? But I don't really blame them, because I understand, right? The scripture says that at one point they will understand and apprehend that all that they have inherited from their fathers has been in vain and has really meant nothing in reality, right? They would never say or never agree, regardless of documented history, right, that the Egyptians, when they were at the peak of their civilizations, the European streets were filled with feces, right? And no form of, what do they call it, drainage for sewer water or any kind of such things, right? These things were just there in Egypt, right? We invented these things and we brought them to Europe, right? And now the people that we inspired are saying that they inspired us. Why? Because they won the colonial war. They think that they are the beginning and the end of it all, right? That's a regrettable mistake, but again, I don't blame them really, because they lack their true history, right? They see all of these magnificent things, right? The buildings of antiquity and all of this, right? They don't really ask themselves, where did that all come from, right? I have touched upon the Moors here, right? The Moors, right? And what they did and what has happened since then, right? That the Europeans have basically erased them from history, right? It's not a new thing, right? We literally, as a black people, helped protect Paris against the mustache man, right? But what did they do after our great job? And it's not only the French front that we walked, many fronts we were there fighting to keep your civilization, right? And what did they do to our ancestors after protecting Paris from being taken over, right? I even know history about the most successful, right? The Americans brag about air superiority, right, in the world wars and even since then, but they don't tell you that the most efficient and most successful missions were conducted by Africans. They won't tell you that. They won't tell you that. Right? They won't tell you that. Right? That's the same as they took all of the inventions from black people and just appropriated it, right? And put their name and branding on them, right? By reason of said things being accepted, while they are the ones that create the environment of not acknowledging the truth and the contribution of others, right, in what we call creature comforts today. Everything has been inspired by a melanated person like myself here. So coming back, what do they do to our ancestors, right? They brought them back here without any form of compensation, no reacclimation after war, no nothing. They just brought them back. Some of them, they didn't even bring them back straight to Africa. They just left them in some islands. And some of them, they just called them as a group and then just straight up, pew, pew, all of them, to save the hassle, I guess. That is your MO, Europe. That is your MO. We can go back as far as time as you want, right? You can go as far as time you want. This is your MO. You kill, steal, and destroy. Full stop. Right? And since you get to write the history, most people don't even know that there are actually magnificent structures built in what? Ghana, was it? That are grander than the Chinese wall. Grand than the Chinese wall. And that's our history. But if you ask a European, and most importantly, you inquire about the image they have about Africa, they just see goat skins and feathers and that's what they see, right? That's what recorded history is, right? When we were at the bottom of our civilization, that's when the Europeans came over, right? I'm talking about the Renaissance. Prior to that, right? Because they took off after the Renaissance, and the world has been in war ever since, right? Lavrov, if not Lavrov of Russia, then it was the lady Maria. I think it was Lavrov, right? He said he was honest and truthful with the situation. He said that the Europeans have been causing the problems for the entire world, right? And that is counting from that period. After they took over from Jacob, after they took over from the Israelites, the black rulers, after they took over the reins, the world has been plunged into chaos ever since. It has been going after war, 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 up to right now when I'm making this video. Every war that you see in the world, the Europeans are involved. They're actually the instigators, and that's your history. Do you think that habit is somehow you got infected by Africans or by Arabs? That was your thing? Maybe. Maybe that's, I don't know, common consensus in Europe, right? You were thinking that, you know, we were nice and all of this, right? But we taught you mathematics. We taught the Greek mathematics. We taught them. And this is factual history. These black people from Egypt, not these Arabs who reside there. That's another history. Okay, they know that they're Arabs. They invaded our ancestors, killing them, pushing them down further south. But a long time ago, that was a black kingdom, and they did exactly what the Europeans did, right? I know this guy, right, who does tours over there in Egypt, right? I think I referenced that guy in my channel before, right? Brian Foster, something like that, right? There are literally these pillars which have inscription of kings and the time they ruled and their achievements, basically, right? So after they invaded Egypt and took it over, they started erasing. They started erasing. This is out there. You can go look it up for yourself. They started erasing. They started changing the hue of the skin of the pharaohs to make them Arab, to make them more European, right? Or, like they say, to make them look more acceptable. But these are lies, right? And these lies have cost you, and they're still gonna cost you. Even right now, I've just given you the example of your supposed industrial evolution that you're trying to have with uneducated masses. I don't know how you're gonna do that, but hey, to each his own, I guess. But I just want to emphasize, right? They are reshaping history and basically making themselves the top of every civilization on this earth. Like they are the fathers of civilizations, right? While the Chinese ruled the world and did business with Africa, the Europeans, where were they? People need to remind them. That's the thing. Right? Or when the Mali Empire was at its peak, where was Europe? Right? These people actually think that they were high and mighty even back then. Like, really? You know? It's insane. It's insane to me, honestly. It's insane. And when you tell them this history, they ignore it. Why? Because they have been programmed by their forefathers. They have been handed over this false heritage that means nothing. It's just ash, right? And this is what we are dealing with even now. They are actively changing history to I don't know, to make themselves, it's like giving themselves a shot of dopamine, so to speak, right? To make themselves feel great. But they are not realists. They are not realists. They cannot compete. Right? If I were to challenge scientifically, if I was to challenge the so-called white superiority, biologically speaking, do you think if they had a fair argument and a fair debate, they would win? No, they wouldn't. Right? And now, somehow they find themselves upset that black people are excelling in sports. Right? I think you should ask your, I don't know, managers of the European leagues, why do they come here to Africa to farm for talent? Why do they go to Brazil? Other African ancestry. which you invaded using bioweapons and rape to create a whole class of people that today are oppressing their mothers and fathers with brown skin, like I said in the previous video. These are the effects of the twisting and rewriting of history for both the victim and the vicar, so to speak. It is a double-edged sword. That's why I insist on the truth. On the truth, right? That we taught you trigonometry, we taught you geometry, we taught you how to move, right? Navigation using the stars. We taught you that. These things existed in Egypt. Galileo did not make them, right? He's a nobody. In the scheme of things, he's a nobody. But again, they discovered gravity, right? He sat down on a tree and an apple fell on him, and he started asking himself, why did this apple not go up? Like he was the first person to ask this question. Just like the discoverer of electricity was the first person to examine and ponder upon thunder. What is it? The nature of it? Where does it come from? He was the first person to ponder about that. Just like how they discovered Africa. Right? Just like how they went around Africa renaming, right? And when you erase the name they put, they get upset because it was some sort of achievement to them, right? And what's more disturbing is their glorification of evil characters. This is their thing. They love it, right? You can go into Google right now, right? Let me give you a fine example of what I'm talking about. Go into Google right now. Try to find out how many movies out there are about, for instance, Bonnie and Clyde. You know that famous case, those two murderers, right? Those shame to humanity type people. Do you know how many movies are made about them? And most importantly, they do what they do. They try to make them like heroes. Just like what they tried to do with that CEO person. You remember him? But since it was a white-on-white crime, it's not an issue. But when it's black and white, then they always have to favor the white, right? They're about to let go all of these murderers who were recorded on tape doing these things. We are not shocked. As Africans, we are not shocked. We are not shocked. Okay, we are not surprised by your savagery. It is your nature, right? And the sooner you come to terms with that, the sooner you're not going to repeat your mistakes. Because I'm seeing that you are repeating the same mistakes over and over and lying to yourself. Right? Just like now, right? Trump says that, I don't know, they are kissing and they are basically pleading to do business with America. Like, really? Really? But the scripture does say, the pride of their hearts deceiveth them. And we are seeing it playing out in real time, and we have been seeing it playing out in history. The pride of your heart is continuously and consecutively deceiving you. You are deceiving yourself, right? All of those things that you accredit yourself to have achieved are actually normal, just standard, right? We Africans had boats that could travel from continent to continent when Europe was not even Europe, so to speak, geographically, right? Like I said, Europe is a made-up thing. It's not a landmass surrounded by water bodies or what, no. So, if we are really interested in the truth, my brothers and sisters, we need to be interested in the truth, the ugly and the beautiful. okay? Even though others are more ugly than beautiful, but that's the truth. We should be comfortable with it. We shouldn't be running away from it, right? Try to divert guilt, right? Like for instance, can we take away the bloods of the German people's hands when they were under Hitler because he was not a German, so to speak? No, we can't. Just like we can't just excuse and, I don't know, ignore the participation of real Russians in the Soviet Union, right? So what I'm trying to say is truth, full stop. Prince Easy, love you, see you again when you see me. Bye.